Hey there folks, Tower Tech here. Today we're going to be talking about whether going to university is really worth it. Now, there is an event that's really sparked this reflection for me, and that is I've just paid off my student loan. Hooray, hooray for me. Now, student loans in the era in which I went to university, I'm going to show my age a little bit, are nowhere near as bad as they are today. In fact, you only had to pay about £1,000 tuition fees in the period I went to university, 2002 to 2006. It's actually a bit more like £9,000 today. Now, we had to pay the £1,000. These days, you get the opportunity to include that as part of your loan. But if you're on a 3-year course, you don't need to be a mathematician to quickly work out that that stuff starts to really stack up in cost. On top of that, of course, you've got the cost of your home, your housing, your food, assuming that you're not living with your parents, etc. So notwithstanding that point, and we'll come back to that at the end, I just wanted to have a little reflection, having left university some 12 years ago now, having paid off the money that I borrowed in order to go to university. And this is like a government-led thing. If you're not in the UK, it's very interest friendly. You only have to pay it back if you earn over certain amounts of money. But, you know, it was £3,000 a year. I was at uni for 4 years. So, you know, you're still talking about 12 grand. And when you're just leaving uni, even that's a lot of money, but nothing compared to today. So looking back on the 12 years of life that I've had since I've left university, do I actually think it was worth it? So thinking back to that time, it's probably fair to say I didn't do a whole heap of really great research before I went to university. I didn't go to the poshest college in the world. In fact, I went to, you know, a very sort of kind of traditional skills college where they taught things like laying brick and plumbing, electrical installation, stuff like that. And I did a vocational course, which was basically an engineering design course. So it had a bit of mechanical engineering, it had a bit of electrical engineering. In the UK, most people, when they leave school at the age of about 16, they will have finished something called GCSEs, which are General Certificate Secondary Education. They go on to do something called A-levels, which are advanced levels. That really wasn't for me. So I decided I wanted to do this vocational qualification, which was still academic, right? I mean, you still had classes, it had a lot of maths to it. You know, this wasn't a course for dummies. It just was a little bit more applied than perhaps your traditional sit in a classroom type course would be. And that really worked for me, right? I'm a practical guy. I like to roll my sleeves up. I like to get stuck in. I like to build something. So not a bad college by any means, but certainly not, you know, like a top percentile type college, nothing like that. So I did extraordinarily well on that course, and I got an awful lot of encouragement from the tutors that I had at the time to be quite ambitious in the universities that I applied for. And the university that I got into was most definitely a top 10 UK university at the time. It's University of Bristol for those that are interested. And, you know, this was like a big thing for the college I was in. Really great success for them that they managed to get someone into such a kind of prestigious university. And the university themselves were going through a period of time that they were trying to encourage people who hadn't gone to like private schools, you know, were super posh and mummy and daddy had like, you know, Lamborghinis and stuff like that. They were really trying to encourage people like that to join the university in what they called their widening participation program, which basically meant I had to go on a pre-joining university course. I kind of called it the special needs course, which might be a little bit unfair. And then I got a tutor that I'd like check in regularly with to see how I was getting on with stuff. And that all seemed great, right? So, you know, the college really encouraging me, the university actually encouraging me, and at the time appearing to be quite welcoming. Now, the thing that I fundamentally failed to do, and I got really swept up in the whole going to university and going to a good one, was to actually really understand the culture of the university, what the university itself was like. And it's probably fair to say that when I rocked up in my massive baggy trousers, my very closely cut haircut at the time that I think was like some grade 0 point something, that might be a bit of an exaggeration. Certainly not a scruffy guy, but I wasn't again, at the risk of exaggerating this a little bit, I wasn't wearing, tweed jackets with patches on the not the shoulders, on the elbows. Geography teach type stuff. And I rock up the first day, young lad, first real experience being away from home. My bag was jingling with all the vodka bottles that I had in it, and I'm thinking, here we go, we're going to have a great time. And much to my dismay, the entire flat that I was part of decided to go to bed, because next day was the first day of uni, and they all wanted to make a good impression. So, the look from the outset was a little problematic. So I didn't really fit in. I think probably, if I'm honest, on reflection, I probably learnt an awful lot from those people, as frustrating as I found them at the time. But it did somewhat dampen the experience that I had at university. I'm not sure. I think if I maybe had gone to a slightly less prestigious university, I would have had, particularly for the age that I was, slightly more enjoyable period of time. Definitely a real rite of passage, and one of the great things about my university, in fact, one of the things that I enjoyed most about my university, is there were people from all over the world there, particularly in the class I was in. So I did electrical electronic engineering, and that attracted quite the contingent of chaps from Greece, and quite the contingent of people from China. And I think there were 3 of us out of 120 people that were English on my course, which really goes quite a long way to really demonstrate to you young British people's attitudes towards engineering, which is a real problem in this country. So there's 3 of us that were Brits. The other 2 guys were nice chaps, but I actually got to know these Greek guys and these Chinese guys quite well, and they were great crack. They were loads better than the people that were in my flat. The people that were in my flat were predominantly from the UK. They were, private posh people that were really not up for partying, having a good time. So progressively over a period of time, I get closer and closer to these Chinese guys and to these Greek guys. Learn loads about the culture, learn loads of great Chinese cooking, which was fab. And, really learned quite a lot about myself. It's probably fair to say, like many people when they first arrive at university, had a little bit of a chip on my shoulder, a little bit arrogant, some might say. I think that was probably more symptomatic of the fact that I didn't really know who I was. I hadn't really found myself. I was quite the fitness fanatic. I know that may be difficult to believe looking at me now. I was quite the fitness fanatic when I joined university, and, had kind of got swept up in this whole, you're doing really well, you're one of the best students we've had at the college, welcome to this great prestigious university. And I got swept up in that whole thing. And, if I'm honest, that probably didn't do me a whole heap of good. And I, really learnt some humility. I learnt, I met a whole load of people that I very quickly realised are a whole heap smarter than I'll ever be. And, that humbled me, and I think that was good for me. And I think over the course of the 4 years, I did an undergraduate and I did a master's, I think I learnt a lot, and I probably found myself. I definitely came out of university way more seasoned than I went into it. Probably would say that I discovered myself, right? That would be a fair summary. The course itself, the course was fab, right? Electrical electronic engineering, we had some great toys, and 50% of the course that we did was all coursework. It's probably the only bloody reason that I passed, if I'm honest. I wasn't the world's greatest studier. No, I wasn't the greatest attended student in lectures, but I loved the coursework. The coursework was mandatory. It was you're there and you pass or you fail the whole course. It probably wouldn't have taken that, if I'm honest, for me to actually be there, because a bit like my college days, right? The whole reason I wanted to do a vocational course is I love getting my hands dirty, and I love building things, I love making things. That's why I like running YouTube channels, right? I like doing stuff. I don't just like reading about it, I want to do it. And that was great. We did this fantastic project in the 3rd year where we created these buggies that had mini computers on them. We did all the programming. These things could navigate their way around a course that was all input through dial tone. For people who of my generation and older, you remember, when you used to press the numbers on the keypad, it would make a tone. It's actually two tones combined together that tells you what the number is, and we used all of these tones basically to input coordinates into these things, and it was a great project. And I actually won a prize for that project. It's a prize from Texas Instruments, actually, for best third year prize. Here we go. Note to future editing self: we should dig those videos out. We still got them somewhere, and we should upload those on YouTube. They will be shit resolution. I mean, beyond shit. This was done on my very, very, very old phone, where they barely had cameras on them. This would have been sort of 2004, 2005, I think. But, they're worth a giggle, and they're moments that I'm proud of. It's probably fair to say in my professional career, I haven't applied a damn thing that I've ever learned on my course at university. So I studied electronic engineering. I actually went to work in IT, and I would definitely challenge the curriculum of university that it wasn't good enough, really, in my very humble opinion, at preparing you with the skills that you need really to work in a professional workplace. So, I wasn't really great at giving presentations. I think I'd had to do that twice at a stretch at university, and they was such a small amount of credits. I mean, it was something that you could have winged quite easily and it not have been a problem. Your ability to influence people, certainly in the job I do, setting IT strategy, stuff like that, your ability to, there's no good having a strategy that's written down on paper. Your ability to influence people that's the right thing to do and get their support and their buy-in actually is the hardest bit of that job. Actually, if you understand the IT bit, the strategy bit's relatively straightforward to do. Influencing people and convincing them that have a myriad of different competing agendas that's the right thing to do. Now that was a skill I was most definitely lacking when I left university. And then, things like organisational politics and understanding what motivates particular behaviours. Is it a red organisation? Is it an aggressive organisation? A outcomes task-orientated organisation? Or is it a fluffy HR people-y type organisation, right? There's some great books on this sort of stuff. And actually, it's not beyond the wit of man to learn this stuff. But there was very, very little by way of substance delivered in my course in particular that actually armed you with those tools in your tool belt. And we had this thing called professional studies that attempted to deliver some of that. I mean, it was very hard, if I'm honest, to take that class seriously at all. So, yeah, any of the very remote skills that you did get from it, you probably didn't in your mind register that as I'll file and keep that for later. That will be useful. So, a reflection on university. Was it worth going there? Was it worth that investment of my time? Was it worth that investment of my cash? The answer is a categoric yes. And actually, the reason it's a categoric yes is not for any of the things that I've actually discussed thus far on this vlog. And actually, it's a very subtle reason, but it's one actually that has helped me address all of the shortcomings that I've spoken about in terms of the academic content of that course, and actually really helped me move forward with some of the more technical components of the academic curriculum. And that's as simple as this. It taught me how to learn. Up until that point, at school, they're teaching you for a set exam. They broadly know what's going to be in that exam. They teach you to be able to answer those questions. Most of the lectures that I was in at university were very much, here's a topic, I'm going to talk loosely around the topic, I'm going to help you understand where it's applied and where it's helpful. Here's chapter such and such in your book, go away and learn it. You'd go away and you'd learn that, then you'd look at some example questions and you'd suddenly realise the example questions were nothing like what you'd gone through in your textbook. So you had to do the work. You had to read around the subject, you had to understand it, and if you didn't do that, you couldn't pass the exams at the end of the year. That teaches you the way to approach learning about a topic. And if I'm honest, it's that one single thing. It's that one subtle single thing that they never call out explicitly in the whole time that you're at university that has allowed me to enjoy every bit of professional success that I've had. So though, with that reflection, now reflecting on it being £9,000 a year, is that right for you? Only you can make up your mind on that. I do know, actually, in the news today, there's been a whole load of discussion that the UK education system has actually become one of the most expensive education systems in the world. And I'm sure if you're watching this in the States, you're thinking, oh no, it's not. But it's substantially more expensive than it certainly was in the past. And that, that's a cultural change that people have to go on and make and understand. I genuinely hope they make it cheaper. I think an education, pays for itself no matter how the cost. But making that more accessible for people like me, who didn't necessarily come from privileged, private school, privately educated, boarding school type backgrounds, despite my apprehension and my frustrations at the time, has really been quite a life-changing event for me. So there we go, guys. Reflections on university. A slightly different vlog. Let me know if you want more of these. Leave a like. Share and subscribe if you're not. I hope you're really well wherever in the world you are. And I will see you in my next one.